with Coumadin, it's going to be vitamin K. So if you have a person that starts a lot of bleeding, you can do that. You can also give them fresh frozen plasma, because those are things that actually have the coagulation factors in them. So there are things we can do to go on the other side, but you hope that doesn't happen. So, but that's why that whole thing about weight-based heparin, that's why we have that now, because we used to have people that had a lot of problems because we gave them so much and they didn't really need all that anticoagulation. So once we have this in the patient, just remember that when they are, patient needs to understand that even though it resolves now, you will have to be treated for 6 to 9 months post DVT because you're more apt to clot, so you still have to do that. We may take you off some of your other medications that you were taking. So if you have a woman on birth control pills, she may have to come off and use alternative birth control methods, mainly because that's a prothrombic thing. Stop people from smoking, all those kind of things that you don't want patients to end up having problems from. Now, this is something that you can be treated for and never have a problem again. And then other time, every time you have some type of injury, things will end up happening. So it just depends on the patient. The worst case scenario, of course, though, is that the clot breaks off and then it becomes embolized. And just think about it, it goes through the vascular system and it's going to lodge at this space where the least resistance kind of thing. So you can infarct the lungs, the brain, you know, the person can have a stroke from it. You can infarct the kidneys, patient go into renal failure. So those are all things that you can end up having as a complication associated with that. But hopefully none of that happens. Major thing is think about that person at risk. So anybody who's sitting for a long period of time, surgeries for a long period of time, long bone fractures, that kind of stuff, those are people that you worry about having this. And pretty much every person who comes to the hospital now is evaluated. If you come to an emergency room, they're going to evaluate you to see if you need DVT prophylaxis or GI prophylaxis. Because the GI part of it is going to be proton pump inhibitor. But if you need DVT prophylaxis, they're either going to put you on Lovenox or a Rigstra, or you may go on, but it's usually Lovenox. And Lovenox is a low molecular weight heparin. You'll see doctors try to put it low molecular weight heparin, they'll abbreviate that in the progress notes, and that's what they'll put the patient on. And they usually put them on 40 milligrams every day. The thing about this one is it's a similar to heparin because it is made from the heparin. It's a low molecular weight, one molecule different. This one is $400. Heparin is $5. The same. You get rid of some of that. You get rid of a lot of side effects though when you talk about Lovenox, and usually once a day dosing, which makes it nicer. Sometimes you'll see a patient get Lovenox twice a day, but it's rare. Most of the time you see a person get it once a day. If you're giving sub-Q heparin, you have to give it at least 3 times a day. Okay, so sometimes you'll see patients take it once, sometimes you'll take it twice, but most of the time you're giving sub-Q heparin is 3 to 4 times a day. Okay.
Sub-Q heparin?
Yeah, you can't give it. Yeah.
That's enoxaparin?
No, it's different. You can actually give regular heparin sub-Q, but it has to be dosed more often. And that's why people like giving this one because it's usually once a day. So same things as far as it works the same way, but you don't have to give it as often.
Is that the reason why, like when we, I work in hospice, so you like flush the port, you do with the normal saline, and then you flush with the heparin to keep the port.
It keeps it open, yeah. And depending on, for most ports, you will use heparin. There are some you can't use. They actually ruin them. So you have to be careful about it. And you have to be careful about when you're doing, probably in your setting, is that you get the heparin like 100 units per
It's
ml.
already pre-measured.
Yeah. You have to be careful about which ones you're using because heparin containers actually have either 100 units per ml, 1,000 units per ml. You got to be careful in which ones you're using. So depending on what, and most of them are prepackaged for whatever you need them for, but just make sure you look at them because there is a difference. And that's the kind of stuff that ends up when you have medical errors or bad outcomes happen. That's usually why. You have something that was supposed to be one dose and you didn't realize it was another. Because epinephrine is like that. You can give it 1 in 10,000 and 1 in 100,000. That's 10 times what this one is supposed to be. And And that's what usually happens when bad things happen. That was something that if you ever watched the Yarn Blaine video, that happened with the physician gave a child who came in for a tonsillectomy adult dose of epinephrine. So the child died. And the thing about it is you can't figure out why this person isn't getting better until you start looking at, oh my God, this is what I did instead of doing that. And that stuff stays with you forever. You know, this bad stuff happens, and we do know that even when you do everything right. But if you cause that for a person, that's not easy to get over, especially with a child. You never want that kind of stuff to happen. But this is something that we, it's because it's being monitored by a joint commission, you will see that as something that they screen patients for when they come into acute care settings. All right. Then your book goes into varicose veins. I don't really ask you about that because that's like mainly because varicose veins happen. It's mainly just because you have an incompetent vein that's happening in the leg. They get torturous. So nobody ever wants to have those. You see people walking around on the beach with them and you're like, what is wrong with you? Cover that up. Kind of thing. But those veins get bad over time. I will tell you what ends up or what causes them a lot of times is crossing your legs all the time. So you go ahead. Everybody always do that. You have old lady legs. That's what I'm saying. But you know that probably the weirdest thing about varicose vein is because it's really because they're incompetent valves there. They get really big and they call that torturous thing, but they get really wrong. But there was a lady once when I was at Florida Hospital with students that actually went to a doctor to have those injections that are supposed to make them kind of wither and die, the vein itself, and it infiltrated in her, and she ended up with an amputation for that. So I thought to myself, if I had old lady legs, I'd just have them. I'm sorry. Because she was younger. She was probably like in her 40s. And now she had to be in rehab because, she was there, she was fitted for a prosthesis, all this kind of stuff. And when, you listen to the story, you're like, you did what? That's what you're thinking in your head. But she had some type of injections that were, and then I thought, well, did she go to a real doctor? I didn't want to ask her that. Because people do that. It's cheaper to go to some little hoodwink person that's got a little thing up in their backyard that say they can do cosmetic surgery as opposed to going to a real surgeon. Now y'all know y'all see these stories on TV about people doing that. Like, wow. Because I think
they go to another country.
I know. How hard can it be to get it in the vein and that kind of thing? But she ended up losing her leg because of that. So not that it's not important, but it's not test question is really not because people don't get hospitalized for varicose veins. And it's not one of those things that I need to know how to manage a varicose vein and take care of the patient. Kind of thing.
So that's just a cosmetic thing, right?
Yeah, I mean it does. I mean you can have swelling and edema associated with it, but usually if they're really bad, sometimes you have a patient with pain, but more than anything is cosmetic. It just doesn't look nice. It's a road map on the back of your leg kind of thing. But they got all kind of makeup now you can put on.
Is it reversible? If you lose weight maybe or something?
It usually makes them a little better. The earlier you do it, the better, because it's one of those things that gets worse over time. So if you have a person that does have them, or they're starting to get them, sometimes wearing support hold, compression holds helps. So that's the kind of stuff you can do. But as far as, and that's one of the things, like when you're trying to decide what's like important to test on, kind of thing. The NCLEX test plan goes by, they go and ask new nurses what they do every 3 years and say, what are the things I need to do to be able to manage a patient? Varicose vein is not how on the list. Right? So it's going to be things that you have to do, what you need to manage, how you need to direct people, because they ask all those delegation questions kind of things that are in there. But that's why I don't really ask you about that. It's something that's cosmetic and yes, can be painful, but it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big a thing to see. Now, I did Buerger's and Raynaud's are two different phenomena that happen in the small vessels. And yes, they do happen, but they're also not things that happen a lot. All right, so they're going to be things you see with patients, two different phenomena or diseases, because they used to be called phenomenons now. But what you see is there's going to be discoloration or pain in the hands, and this usually has to be, it can happen in hands and feet. But what you see with Raynaud's is usually a person who has bluish discoloration. So you can have cyanosis. It's a spastic kind of thing that goes on in the arterial system. And so what you have over time is that anybody who has this needs to stop smoking. Sometimes you have people move from where they used to live. If they live in a really cold place, it makes it worse. Because it's almost like they have frostbite without getting out in the cold. It's just because they're exposed to cold, that's what ends up happening to them. So you want to make sure they stop smoking. You can end up with people that lose part of their hands and fingers and that kind of thing, but it's because it's spastic, you can end up, they use calcium channel blockers to treat it, but I'm not going to ask you questions on those, but they just happen. They don't happen. Why? It's not the end of life if they happen. And the worst case scenario is if you don't treat it, or the patient continues to be symptomatic and doesn't do the lifestyle stuff, is that they can lose fingers and toes. Because that's primarily what's affected. We're talking about extremities. But the other thing over here, hypertension is definitely going to be there, because that's common. Now, hypertension is one of those things that we don't know why it happens for most people, because it can be primary or secondary when you're talking about patients having hypertension. So this is something that we know that what is happening as far as the mechanism goes, but why one person has it or doesn't have it, there's not always an answer to why. So it's idiopathic for some people. For other people, we know it happens as a secondary problem because it's associated with some other disease process that the person has. So just know that it can kind of go either way when we talk about that. What is the one thing we always talk about hypertension being, though? What is
Silent
killer? Mainly because there's no symptoms. A person can have really high blood pressure and not really know it. Now there will come a point when you become symptomatic. Just know that that is something, but the vast majority of people who have hypertension don't know it. And that's one of the things why you want to do screenings so you can identify people early, make those lifestyle changes and things that they can do with that. But what we see is that there is a increase in afterloads. That's the pressure within the vascular system clamp down, because that's what's going on with the problem. So you have increased afterload. You also have increased vascular volume for most people, because that's what we see actually with that. And then you can have activation of the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. So it can be one of those things or a combination thereof that's causing the hypertension in the patient. So we have increased afterload. So that means the periphery is going to be clamped down more. We have increased vascular volume. Or we have activation of the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. So patients have one of those or combinations thereof when you're talking about patients who end up with hypertension. We also have some ethnicities that have higher incidence of hypertension. And who are those people? African Americans and Latinos and Native Americans. Now, why that's important is, of course, it's important about everything. When you think about, you want to screen everyone, but you also know that high-risk groups are you going to actually try to do it more often, or reach out to other places where they gather to actually do screening. Because one of the things that you find out sometimes, especially if you're doing healthcare worker kind of stuff for other agencies and that kind of thing, they want you to actually go out and teach people where they live, per se, which is very interesting. I think I told y'all about my experience in the barbershop. Kind of thing. So you might go to a church, because that's where you're going to have a lot of people gathered together. You can do screenings there. So anytime you have a lot of people together, it's going to be an opportunity to do some teaching, screening, hand out pamphlets, whatever, or to bring somebody in to talk about how we can change things about what people are doing. So not that other ethnic groups don't have the same education be for everybody, but this is a group I'm thinking about, oh, I need to make sure that's something I check, or you talk to your doctor about, that kind of thing. So when we see patients with hypertension, you're going to see an elevation in systolic blood pressure greater than 130, and a diastolic greater than 90, or 90 degrees. Now the reason that, I should say 130, I'm sorry, 140. I had a moment, sorry. So the reason why I said that, one of the things that the JNCC, who are the people that talk about, that's the joint, but it's the commission that talks about cardiovascular care in this country. They actually wanted to take hypertension down to 130. So patients were diagnosed at 130. And that's been now almost 8-9 years ago that they want to do that. But that would have made a whole lot of people have pre-existing conditions, which would, under the Affordable Care Act, is not a problem. Under other agencies or that kind of thing is a problem, because that would essentially say that if I had hypertension when you measured me when I came to you, I could deny you health care coverage. That was one of the things I really liked about Affordable Care Act, was that you can't exclude people because they have something when they come to you. And that's one of the things that we're going to struggle with if whatever we switch to, if that caveat doesn't stay there, a lot of people can still be put out of insurance kind of things that are going on. So you don't ever want to see that happen to the patient. So I have a systolic blood pressure 140 or greater, a diastolic blood pressure of 90 or greater in this person. And your book goes into great detail talking about what's accelerated versus all that kind of stuff. You just think about this person has hypertension. Yes, those things are important, especially if you start people on medication and stop them, because that's usually when those things happen. Okay, that's when you talk about patient being in hypertensive emergency, hypertensive crisis. That generally happens when patients who have never been diagnosed before have really high blood pressures, or it happens because they stop taking their medication and it happens as a rebound kind of thing going on. So you're looking at this issue, I got a person whose blood pressure is high, and a lot of people, especially lay people, think, oh, if my blood pressure is high, my blood's still flowing. That's the issue. When you have a high blood pressure, you don't get good blood flow to your organ systems. So that's what ends up happening to the patient. The end result is that if you continue to let blood pressure go high, the organs suffer. Okay, so think about end organ damage is the worst case scenario when you're talking about patients and hypertension, because your organ systems are the casualty when you're talking about what happens with a patient who's hypertensive. If you think about it, it's all the things that you see. Poorly controlled hypertension is a renal failure patient. Poorly controlled hypertension is a stroke patient. Poorly controlled hypertension is the person having a heart attack. So what you're thinking about is, the blood is flowing, yes, but it's not actually flowing to the organ systems where it needs to. So that's why the patient ends up having a problem. So think about end organ damage, and it's microcirculation, macrocirculation. Now the thing about it is, this is coming from hypertension, but you see the same end result in a person who's diabetic. It's just a different mechanism by which it happens. So microcirculation is eyes, and kidneys. Lord, microcirculation. What the heck? Lord, I need to go home. And our macrovascular is heart and brain. And that's why if I'm not perfusing those things, which comes from its person's blood pressure being high, that's why you can infarct these and why you can lose them. So end organ damage, that's what they're talking about. Hypertensive crisis will happen to you quick. But if I'm not controlling my blood pressure over time, the end result is that these things are going to fail eventually. Because I can tell you the status of your vascular system just by looking in your eyes. I don't have to do any x-ray. I can look at the back of your eyes and see if you have changes in your retina, see if you have cotton wool spots, which are things that happen because the patient is hypertensive. So that's letting me know that if it's happening here, it's happening everywhere else too. So that's the issue that you have, that when you're talking about patients having problems. So that's part of the reason why, you're doing the physical exam on a person, you're like, oh my God, he's gonna die. If we change some things around, we can do better, or get the patient to do better. So that's what we want to do. Now your book goes into, different stages, because based on the blood pressure, all that kind of stuff, I'm gonna tell you in any question that all of that is garbage. All right? I'm not saying it's trash, but the thing about it, that's not what the question is focusing on. The question is focusing on something else. But they'll say stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Patient is hypertensive regardless. What things do you need to do to tell the patient to manage their disease? That's what the question is. All that other stuff, because that's what it is, you have to put distractors. Things that make no sense. And you're going like, I hate her so much right now. when you're doing that. But that's what it's there for, to get you to focus on what's really important. See what that question is really asking you about it. Most of the things when you talk about this kind of stuff is recognizing when the patient is having a complication, which would be here. Because if you had a question that says, how can you tell a patient experienced complication associated with hypertension? Slurred speech, stroke. Blindness, because those are the kind of things that you're looking for. Think about what the organ does, gives you an idea. When urinary output is down, that's the kidneys. The experiencing complications tells me that I've reached this point where I'm having problems right now. The other pieces of that are going to be talking about patient education. What do I need to tell this person who is hypertensive? The lifestyle changes, guess what, are the same for everything we talk about in cardiovascular disease, because they're all the same. You'll see the risk factors, all that kind of stuff are going to get saved for the patient. Big thing for this group is going to be focusing on, I'm going to decrease vascular volume. That's a big time diet issue. So that's low sodium intake with this patient. So patient teaching about how can I do that is going to be, the first thing you do is that low sodium diet. Tell them where the hidden sources of sodium are. It's canned foods, things that are processed. All those things are like big sodium sources for a patient. And if you tell somebody to eat something that's low, because the one thing they'll say, I'm going to change my fat intake too. If you eat low fat, it's going to be high sodium, because fat tastes fantastic. So to cover it up, you got to put a lot of salt in it. So if you look at diet dinners, the low fat ones actually have more sodium than the other ones do. So you're like, let me just have my fat then. kind of thing. That's what you're going to do. So you have to teach them how to read labels. That's real important for them to do. So that's one of the things you can do at first, because truly, you're supposed to send the patient home for a couple of months and see whether or not they can lower their blood pressure. That's what used to be. Nowadays, you will see a patient, if you come to the doctor's office hypertensive, you leave them with a pill. Because I don't want you having a stroke at home and saying, oh, I didn't treat you. That's just the way it is. But in truth, you're supposed to say, I can do a step therapy with this person, go check your blood pressure every day, or buy you a blood pressure cuff and use the same one at home so you can see what they are. Let me try it for a few weeks and then you come back. But nowadays you're gonna go home with a pill. Just saying. All right. So, but this is what you want to do. Decreasing vascular volume is going to actually, I'm going to do things to decrease that. Sodium is a big one that goes along with that. Teach them how to read food labels, how to look for hidden sources, and things you don't even think about. Because every couple of months I get a craving for beef jerky. Now I know I have hypertension, but I just want something really salty. And that's the saltiest thing I can think of. That and Cheetos. Okay, so sometimes it's a Cheeto. And so you try to eat just a few, but you